So, Berto, we sent out a survey before the 14th anniversary show and asked people to send in their questions for us. And during the live show, the 14th anniversary show, we answered many of the questions, but we didn't get to all of them. And I feel compelled and responsible for answering at least all the questions that I flagged as like good questions for us to get into. So this episode will not really be much about psychology. So if you're looking for that sort of thing, I might not listen to this episode. But if you're just wanting to hear Berto and I answer kind of some random questions that people were curious about.
Big revelations, never before heard.
Yeah.
But if you don't want that, don't listen.
This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor.
My name is Humberto Castañeda, and I manufacture little bricks that you can put together into anything you imagine.
So the first question is actually not from the survey, but it was from Discord, and it was by Sylvan. Sylvan asked, favorite movie soundtracks?
Oh, yes. Number 5, coming in at number 5, Forrest Gump. Okay, but then Jerry Maguire. Jerry Maguire's, first of all the Cameron Crowe movies have like the best soundtracks. I could have put a list of just Cameron Crowe movies.
Yeah.
So I prioritized my top 3. I wanted them to be all original music soundtracks because these were all like compilations of songs. So number 3, Once.
Oh yeah.
Oh
my God! List? Why is that not on my list?
Oh, okay.
It didn't occur to me. Oh my God! I have to change my list.
Well, Hold on. What's funny is that when I was making my list, at first I forgot to put it in here, and then I'm like, oh, Kirk is gonna kill me.
It didn't even occur to me. Oh my God! Yeah, I'm changing my list right now.
Once a movie, just if you haven't seen it, it's this great independent movie about this singer-songwriter in Ireland, and he's down on his luck, and he meets this beautiful singer, like she sings beautifully, and they start collaborating and sort of also falling in love, and just it's just such a good movie.
Well, in every song, most if not every song that he writes is about his wife or girlfriend that broke up with him and cheated on him, and how heartbroken he was, and there's all these flashbacks, and each song, the lyrics, it's just so heart-wrenching. And it's not the kind of breakup songs that you would hear in top 40. It's complicated adult feelings of shame and anger and sadness.
Oh, and the way he sings them, it's just so guttural.
Yeah.
So when I saw that documentary, man, like you too, it was
not. It's not a documentary.
It's so funny that I said documentary because it feels like a documentary.
It does.
And it was so moving. And the soundtrack, it's one of those like instant classic soundtracks.
I've gone to the musical. It's pretty good as well.
Yeah. All right, number 2 for me is Moana. So Moana is one of my favorite Disney movies. And one of the things that made it one of my favorite movies was actually the soundtrack. The songs are super creative, extremely catchy. It's got one of my favorite bad guy songs of all time, which is the Shiny song, which is done by the guy from the Flight of the Conchords. It has the Rocks song where he's Maui. It's just such a clever song. It's co-written. A lot of the songs are written by Lin-Manuel Miranda from Hamilton fame, and they're just very good lyrics, very catchy melodies, and they add a lot of these elements from the Polynesian music, and so I love it, love the whole thing, and even the parts of the soundtrack is in the CD or on Apple Music, whatever. There's all the instrumental music, and it's just also beautiful, really great. And then number 1, of course, I couldn't not make this my favorite soundtrack since it's my favorite movie, Amadeus.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
It's kind of funny to think because, but it's a movie about Mozart. I know, exactly. And the soundtrack is just glorious.
For me, my number 5 is Harold and Maude, which is all Cat Stevens. And my number 4 is a movie called Rushmore, which I'm surprised wasn't on your list.
It's a crime that it's not. That should have at least been an honorable mention. Like you forgot once, I sort of forgot Rushmore.
For me, Rushmore, Wes Anderson, either in spirit or literally was ripping off the movie Harold and Maude. Harold and Maude, I saw it when I was a kid, and it must have influenced me, because by the time I saw stuff like Wes Anderson, I had been primed to it. If you like Wes Anderson and you want to see a proto Wes Anderson movie from 1972 or something, Harold and number 3 is Once, and it's just especially there's probably like 6 tracks on Once that I could listen to over and over and have. Yeah. My number 2 is another Cameron Crowe movie, which is Singles. About Seattle.
Great soundtrack.
I'm getting all my music collection back, because even though I'm a huge like Spotify person and playlists, I have found that playing actual media, records mainly, but also CDs, it really makes music listening more enjoyable. And I like to pick out the CD. And so today in the mail, Berto, I got the Singles soundtrack on CD.
Oh, nice.
And was listening to it again. And it's been a long time since I listened to it, but it reminds me of college. I mean, in 1991, that year, I think that's all we listened to, along with like Smashing Pumpkins. And so
wow,
that whole album is really good. But I could see how people wouldn't like it, because it's of a particular time in Seattle. But anyway, and my number 1 is Pretty in Pink, because for me, this soundtrack was like the first really big... Oh, you know what? Another soundtrack is not on here that I probably should be at number 1. But anyway, Pretty in Pink, High School, OMD, Psychedelic Furs, Suzanne Vega, INXS, New Order, a cover of Wouldn't It Be Good to Be... And then my favorite Smith song of all time, Please, Please, Please.
Oh, yeah.
But I need to add another soundtrack, which is the Muppet movie, the original Muppet movie. Because that soundtrack I would listen to over and over and over again at the age of 9 or something with headphones on, and I would just, in the dark, evening time, and I would close my eyes with these big headphones, and I would imagine I was like a conductor. Anonymous says, what song would you and Berto slow dance together to, and who would lead? Berto, what do you think?
The slow dance song. I said Dance With Me. And it'd be no lead, just a perfect harmony.
That's the song that I picked too. So Berto has a song, Dance With Me, and we would perform it together. And then who would you say would lead?
I said no lead, just a perfect harmony.
I said I would probably lead, to be honest, because you would probably be okay with that, and I probably wouldn't know how to. Although, wait a second, you're a Colombian dancer, and so you're very accustomed to the whole...
No, but it makes sense, because I'm not like, I didn't grow up slow dancing to gringo music. So
yeah, right. All right, patron Stegosaurus from Australia asked, favorite Death Note character? It's an anime. I don't know. I haven't watched it, so I have no favorite character. They're all my favorite character. Berto, have you ever watched Death Note?
I saw the Death Note movie, which was not something I enjoyed, but I would say the favorite character was a bad guy, but I have not seen the anime.
And Allison says, I know I won't get the answer, but Humberto, what is your job?
Oh, of course you'll get my job. My answer of my job. I just said it at the beginning. And, I manufacture these little bricks that you can assemble into creative ways. So, but I just tire of talking about it, because we always go on and on about it. So
I know, it's just all the time. Patron Victoria says, what is your personal style? I'm guessing Victoria is referring to like the way we dress or something. And so I actually thought about this for a few minutes, and I think I'm just a middle-aged dad type dresser. Maybe there's a sort of Asian American way of dressing. Not that we all dress the same, but it's kind of a clean look and a lot of blacks and grays.
Yeah, my personal style, I would call it comic book guy. I basically wear t-shirts with things on them, I guess right now.
From The Simpsons? From The Simpsons?
Yeah, from The Simpsons. Like I wear t-shirts with things on them that have some reference to something. Although oddly, most of my coolest t-shirts my mom bought for me as Christmas or birthday presents. And I usually just wear jeans or sweats or something. And then when we have parties, I might dress up.
When I met you in the aughts, you were a fancy dresser. You dressed expensive clothing.
Yeah, there was a little period of time. Yeah, that's true. When you met me, because I was going out a lot at that time.
Yeah.
So, I had a little fancier get-ups, but
You dressed kind of like a D-bag club guy. I mean, not in a bad way, but
just in a good D-bag way.
you had a white leather jacket that you would wear.
I still do. I would call that the guy that doesn't know how to spend his money look. Yeah, I still have some nice jackets though.
You were sharply dressed, and when you want to, you can dress up nicely.
Yeah.
You know how to manage those things. All right, Kim from California, patron Kim from California. These are all patrons, by the way. Name something you really wish you were better at, Berto.
Better at. What did I say? These are not in order, are they?
Yeah.
Well,
you might not have. I might not have given this to you.
I think if I were oh yeah, okay. I said dancing bachata. That's what I said. So there's this style of dancing called bachata. It's like a slow dance. It's a little more subtle than even salsa. There's a lot of foot movement.
Interesting. For me, I don't know. I can't really think of anything that I would want to be better at. Not that I'm good at everything, but it's just not usually how I think. But if I wanted to be, it'd be music stuff. I'd want to be better at piano or guitar or singing or something. I guess piano. I know how to play piano, sort of. But watching you kind of sit down and just go boom, 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 because you've played a lot more than I have, obviously. Did you take lessons when you were younger?
I mean, when I was 15, my mom put me in lessons, but unfortunately, I did not practice.
Okay.
Most of my piano is from me spending time during college years, learning shit on my own.
Yeah, I feel like with guitar, you can become good enough without much practice.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly if you're going to be really good, you got to practice a lot. But I, for example, have literally never practiced guitar. I've just always played the guitar.
Right.
I didn't have to sit down and do scales or purposely try to get better at guitar. Whereas with piano, same. I've never sat down to learn how to play piano. I've never taken a lesson. I've never said, okay, I'm going to get better at this. I've always just
spent a lot more time than you on piano. You spend a lot more time on guitar than me.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
Patron Susie from Dayton, Ohio says, have you watched Severance on Apple TV? I would love to hear your opinions. You haven't watched it, Berto.
I did watch all the way till... I haven't finished it is the problem, but I've watched 5 episodes.
What do you think?
I'm loving it. So far... The spoiler alert, but I found out.
Well, don't spoil.
Okay, I won't spoil. But anyways, I'm enjoying it a lot. I think there's obviously some twists and turns coming. I already saw some twists and turns.
Yeah, I really loved it. I watched the full first season. It really depends on what they do with the second season. So
there's a second season. Okay.
Yeah. So because if the second season is even just okay or good enough, I will love it. But I could see it going badly because it's hard to land the landing, as they say. Stick the landing.
That's why I liked Devs, because they were like, no, we're just doing one season and it's gonna be great.
Yeah, that was a great show. And Severance is in a similar category, except more light and comical. But it's similarly in this. I don't know. I really loved it. The writing, the depth, the premise, the vibe, the way it makes you feel, the intensity. I mean, wait till you get to the end, the last few episodes. Mm-hmm. It is intense. Mm. All right. Patron Bella asked, "What has been your favorite activity type post-pandemic?" So, and then another question, what's been an album on repeat? So, Berto, what's your favorite post-pandemic activity type?
Playing video games with certain people.
Yeah, well, that's what I said too. I said playing Age of Empire. Berto and I and Berto's brother, we obsessively play pretty much every day. We went for a period where we weren't playing all the time because your brother was traveling
and my brother didn't have a computer, and
he was moving and But we're back in the mix again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to give people an idea of what style this game is, it's a real-time strategy. So, and the three of us will play against the AI, and we'll try to challenge ourselves with different maps and harder AIs and stuff. And we have to work together, me, Berto, and his brother, and we have to coordinate. And emotionally, it can be devastating when we lose, because the game will last like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And we might have thought off and on all day long about our strategy. Okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it's also humiliating because you might have been the weak link in the group, and you might have been the one that let the others down. And when you lose, it's very, the thing is with this game, you can never tell if you're about to lose or you're just getting a bad moment. And,
right. Am I about to turn it around, or is this the end?
Yeah, because you can't, there's a fog of war, so you can only see things that are happening around your units. And so when, you feel like, and this happened to me last night, I felt like I was doing pretty well. And then all of a sudden, out of the fog of war emerges this gigantic enemy army. And the map we were on, Berto and his brother were on one side of the map, helping each other out, completely working together, by the way. And I'm all by myself on the other side of the map.
All by your lonesome.
And I had to do everything. I had to do defense and offense, and I had to do the whole thing. And so when this massive army comes from around, and just give you another stupid nerdy thing about this, was the previous time we had played, the problem that I ran into with my strategy is I overextended myself. I got too confident. I got, over my skis, as they say.
Right.
And got smacked back. We eventually won, but we would have won more easily and earlier, at least on my side of the map, if I had been more conservative, more careful. If I didn't just sort of send my entire army into the breach without taking precautions. And so I vowed last night I was going to go slower. That was my whole thing. And I announced it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go slower this time. Don't get overconfident.
Yeah.
And then boom, it happened again, even though I kind of thought I was being more conservative. And so anyway, that's
and then the frustrating thing on our side is the previous game, my brother had dropped the ball walling off. And so this game, we're like, okay, just focus on walls. I'll go attack. You focus on walls. But it's still like, I don't know why they sent so much heat towards his walls, but we still couldn't hold him back at the wall. So then I had to come back, and I couldn't really do enough damage early on. And it was,
And then the other question, what has been an album on repeat? As I was saying earlier, I'm reacquiring all these LPs, all these vinyl records and CDs and stuff. So I don't really have anything that's on repeat because I'm enjoying taking out, I'm kind of going through all my purchases, and because I've been going to estate sales and secondhand stores, and I've been buying a lot of stuff online, trying to find deals on stuff, because some of this stuff is expensive.
Oh yeah.
And since I want to buy so many things, some things I can't. I literally can't afford. I can't buy that. I can't justify that expense. But I will. And so today in the mail, I got singles, as I said earlier. But I also got "Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me," which is my favorite.
Oh, that's great.
Cure album, aside from "Head on the Door." And I got "House of the Holy," which is my favorite Led Zeppelin album. And I got a Jay-Z CD. A best of Jay-Z, which I didn't know existed, but it's pretty great. But then last night, when you and your brother called me to play Age of Empires, I was dancing with my wife in the living room, and we were listening to a vinyl record I got yesterday of Michael Jackson Thriller.
Nice.
It's a picture disc, so on both sides are pictures of the album and stuff, and it's a pretty special thing. And that album, Thriller, it has, I believe, 10 songs, and 8 of the songs are straight up like some of the favorite hits. Yeah, there's only a couple songs on that album out of the 10 where I'm like, okay, it's a good song, but I'm not like blown away. And yeah, it's just such an amazing album. And I also got Off the Wall by Michael Jackson, which is also another picture disc. And I feel kind of bad about listening to Michael Jackson, but at the same time, the argument I have in my head against people who might criticize us is that I have done a lot of work to speak out about all the ills of our society regarding child abuse, and even going into a deep analysis on Michael Jackson twice on this podcast. So I feel like, because, the criticism is if you listen to Michael Jackson, you are contributing to as a state who continue to deny reality, according to a lot of people, and you are maybe part of the problem. It's essentially you're voting with your purchasing choices that you approve of his behavior, or that it makes it okay. And yes, I get that, but I would say that on the other side of the scale is a much heavier weight in terms of directly talking to thousands of people about all the topics that should be talked about to raise awareness about not only him, but, abuse in general.
I've never heard a good argument, a convincing enough argument on either side. I've heard great arguments, but I'm always confused myself.
Mm-hmm. So let's take a break.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. When we get back, more of the questions. What do you say, Berto?
Let's do it.
All right, we're back from the break. Let's do an OPP, Berto.
OPP.
So
it's easy as 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, appropriately. So these people became a patron in July of 2020, all the way back then, and have stayed a patron ever since. We have Josie and M and Haley and Lena, Lena Knutschmund, and annual patron Jennifer and Paul and Bridget and Danielle and Jill and Maga from God knows where. We also have Rosie from Fallbrook, California, Andrea from North Riverside, Illinois, Moontooth from Fitchburg, Wisconsin. Fitchburg. Sarah from Taunton, Massachusetts. Taunton.
Wait, I feel like they're taunting us with these names.
Don from Berlin. Lorraine. Good old Lorraine. I think that's good old annual. Yeah, it's good old annual patron Lorraine from Fremont, California. Giselle from El Paso. I've been to El Paso, lovely little town. Vanessa from Mount Martha, Australia.
Oh, man.
And KK from Albuquerque, and Julia from El Cajon, California. Thank you for becoming a patron all the way back in July of 2020 and staying a patron ever since.
Is KK the patron that took a wrong turn?
At Albuquerque?
Yeah.
All right. So patron Lena from Finland says, what's you guys' favorite vegan dish?
Oof.
What I would say is I don't have one because I'm not a vegan. Berto, what's yours?
It's the one I make. My lunch is so delicious. I make myself I grab a little frying pan, and then I'll put some garlic, some onions. I'll add some jackfruit. I'll add some garbanzo, some sweet potato, some carrots. I'll get it all hot and bothered. Then I'll add in some corn, maybe some green peas. Add some spicy sauce. One of my favorites is this one called Brother Brew Brews because it's got 0 salt. It's great. And then I'll add spices, like things like rosemary and oregano and turmeric, pepper, all that kind of stuff. And then I mix it all up, get it all really great. Sometimes I'll add some cashews and or raisins. Then I serve it all up. Is just my favorite thing. It's spicy and mushy and delicious.
Sounds good. Patron Amber from BC says, have you guys been to Ellie's Pizza Shop in Seattle yet? This is from 90 Day Fiancé. And what I'll say is I have not. So on 90 Day Fiancé, there was a cast member from Seattle, and she owned a pizza shop called...
Oh, it's Ellie's Pizza Shop is her name? Ellie's her name?
No, Ellie is her name. And she owns Central... I think it's called Central Pizza, which is actually in the building that Chong lives, by the way.
No way.
He lives in that building down in like Leshai area. Oh, wow. And so it's kind of, so Seattle, even though I live in Seattle, and this pizza shop is also in Seattle. Driving from my part of Seattle to that part of Seattle is kind of a thing emotionally, at the very least. It probably wouldn't take that long to get there, but it just, if I have, like, for example, I have friends that live down there like Chong, and if they said, hey, come down here, I'd be like, oh, really? Geez, it's kind of far. But if someone said, like, if you said for me to come over to your house, it might be actually longer driving, but it feels different because there's highways and stuff. Anyway, point is that I've never been there, but we did order a pizza from there, and I actually, because I really wanted to find out what it was like, and we had to pay Uber because they didn't deliver because it's all the way across town. We're out of their jurisdiction, so I actually had to pay like a special Uber driver to pick it up and drive it out. and I'll say it's not bad. I mean, it's not my favorite pizza. I don't think I'll order again, but certainly not at the expense of an Uber driver driving it all the way up. But the pizza, it's thin crust, pretty good ingredients. If I remember right, they didn't put many toppings on it. I remember being kind of like, just, because some pizza, it's like they just put a bare amount of tomato sauce and cheese and toppings. They want it to be as sparse as possible.
It's dough with a little bit of stuff.
Yeah, like a dusting of.
That's more like flatbread, And I've never been a big fan of flatbreads.
Well, it depends on the flatbread, like, because you can have flatbread that has a ton of stuff on it too.
Sure, if you offer me flatbread, I'm not gonna stick my tongue out at you, but I'm not gonna be that excited. But if you offer me a really great pizza, I might be excited.
Yeah.
So,
anonymous patron from Canada says, if you were to get a tattoo, what would it be of? Berto.
Well, I have a tattoo. I tattooed my gorilla from a band called Missionary that we used to have. The gorilla was the M in the Missionary. I tattooed that on my right shoulder. If I were to get another tattoo, one thought is I could tattoo my other band's logo, Plastic Polly, on my left shoulder. But I might also do like a Sandman themed thing somewhere secret, somewhere safe.
I gave this a lot of thought, and the only thing I can think of, and I've always wanted to get this for about 15 years, is a big tattoo of Berto's face on my chest.
Oh yeah, that would be appropriate.
Yeah. But seriously, I can't think of anything. Everything I think of, it's like, okay, well, what if I did something ironic, like just a square or a tattoo that says tattoo, or a tattoo that says, I only did this because my wife made me. I don't know. Like,
this space for rent.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I wouldn't get a tattoo that said psychology in Seattle. That's conceited. And I certainly would get.
Kirk Honda is the greatest.
And I wouldn't get a tattoo of my band because that's also conceited. Just joking, Bruno.
No, it's definitely conceited. But listen, what about the Honda car logo?
Okay, but still, like,
to brand yourself with yourself.
So I'll wear a T-shirt that says Honda. I have a T-shirt, a classic Honda wings.
Right, I've seen it. It's great.
From the 60s, 70s, that logo. And that's about as much commitment that I am willing to hand over to a brand or to a phrase. Like, there's really nothing that... Now, the reason why you listening audience out there, you might not be able to relate to me, is because I come from a generation where no one had tattoos. Like, literally nobody had tattoos when I was growing up. The only people that had tattoos were sailors and criminals, literally. And in college, there was this trend to get a tattoo, a very, very small tattoo on your ankle. It started to kind of edge its way in there, and there would be tattoos in the military, and I was in a fraternity, and so one of the things that a lot of my fraternity brothers would do is they would get a small little Theta Delta Chi on their ankle, knowing that it was so small you'd never see it because you'd always have, and it'd be this little secret thing, and it was almost kind of dark. It was seen as something that was, I don't know, just not something you would have in the open. And then through the 90s, very quickly, tattoos became completely mainstream. But by the time I would have been in that zone around, say, 1998 or something, I had already sort of, I was 27 years old. So trends were kind of past me. I just,
sure.
And so when I see tattoos, my attitudes have changed over the years, obviously. But for me, actually having a tattoo, I don't think my attitude has changed at all.
All right.
So I just
get off my lawn with your tattoos.
Basically, yeah. Anonymous patron asks, "What is the most sentimental thing that you own, Berto?"
Oh yeah, man, most sentimental thing. My Winnie the Poohcito. My Winnie the Poohcito is a little Winnie the Pooh doll that I've had since I was a little baby. And it is, so therefore, it is the oldest thing I own. And it was my security toy. And then me and my wife-to-be at the time, we would go on all these trips. And we would bring stuffed animals with us like they were our kids. So Winnie the Poohcito would travel even to England. He went to England, he went to Vancouver, he went to Victoria. He went all over the place.
Like as a funny thing or as a security?
It was like this cute, funny thing. Like, oh, let's bring the little guys. And then the little guys would talk. Oh, how's the trip going? Oh, it's great. We're having a great time.
Well, so was this like cutesy couple stuff, or I don't know, like,
we
or was
both
it
related.
real? Like, because like for instance, I have a stuffed animal. Of the 3 or 4 stuffed animals I had as a kid, I for some reason still have one of them. I don't know where the other ones went, and it resides behind me in my office on my bookshelf. And there have been times in my life when I haven't had really a place for him to be, and I would have him in a drawer, and I'd always feel sad for him. Like he would be in the dark, he'd just be stuffed in a dark drawer. And I have this irrational feeling about it, which, is normal to humans, and I choose to imbue this sort of soul within the thing. Was it that kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure. And we both related to it because we both, I don't know, had a similar connection to the idea of like little stuffed animal friends. And we both wanted kids. And so it was a little bit of role playing. And eventually Winnie the Poohcito became real anyways. And then it was kind of scary. So, he hunted us down. Anonymous
patron wrote in and asked, that my most sentimental thing is my wedding ring, I suppose. And that also took me a long time to think of, because I don't really have anything that is, even though I have a lot of little knickknacks. I mean, so over the pandemic, one of the things so one day, Berto, I want to do a whole episode in which we talk for 3 or 4 hours about how the pandemic was for us, all the different, because there, for example, this one detail, I didn't realize until I thought about it that before the pandemic, you remember, you would come into my office and record podcasts. I had a couple file cabinets behind me, and I just had, a pretty simple desk with a simple computer.
Right.
And I had a couple things on the wall, but it wasn't really elaborate. And then now I have like hundreds of little knickknacks and figures from Star Trek and Game of Thrones and Star Wars and Inside Out and Pixar, and I have all these Legos, and I have all these other things. So many little things that represent how I feel about culture and my life or something. And before the pandemic, I just didn't have time for that. I was busy doing all the other things, and I didn't really care what my office, I didn't care that much. I mean, I cared sort of, but during the pandemic, one, I was spending 99% of my life in my office, and two, and so I wanted to kind of trick it out. Also, I started making a lot more videos, so I wanted a background that actually had like other things other than the books, that I had. And the other thing was that I wanted something to do with my life. And one of the things that I was doing was buying little knickknacks, buying little cultural things for my life. And I would never have done that if it weren't for the pandemic. And so, so there are a lot of things in my office that I could, I guess, say that's pretty sentimental to me, but nothing that I would say is along the lines of what you're saying with the little Poohcito, other than my wedding ring. Like if somehow I lost my wedding ring, I think that would, but I don't know. Like me and my wife, I don't think we're that precious about that. I think if I, for whatever reason, if I did lose my wedding ring and I just had to buy one that was really similar to that, I don't think she or I would give it a second thought, really. Like it would suck, but I don't think I'd be like, oh man. So yeah, I think I'm both massively materialistic and also kind of not in a certain way. But anyway, next question. Patron Gabrielle says, what's a sport you wish to play but never did? Berto.
Womp rat bullseye in a T16. I mean, I thought about this and I was like, okay, what sport did I wish to play but never did? And I didn't really have a good one. I thought maybe water polo, but then that's only because my brother and a friend of mine played water polo, but I didn't really want to play water polo.
Water polo looks extremely uncomfortable. Like you're essentially handicapping yourself. You know, it's like playing with your hands tied together or something. It doesn't look comfortable at all to me.
Right. So then I thought, okay, well maybe tennis. You know, tennis. Because my older daughter's gotten into tennis, and
but you've played tennis before, right?
No, I mean, I played as in, you know, I went when I was 7 one day with my uncle, and then when I was 14, one day really? I tried to play tennis, and no, I didn't play tennis. My wife played tennis when she was in high school, but I didn't. And so, sure, I guess I wish I would have, but not enough to be like, oh, damn, I really missed out.
Yeah.
So then I was like, no, okay, I actually want to fly around in T16s and bullseye womp rats.
Well, for me, I was a sporto growing up and played pretty much every sport I could. I ran in track. I played football. I played soccer, basketball.
So is there one that got away?
Baseball, softball.
Did you play hockey?
No. Okay. But again, that doesn't look comfortable to me. I don't need to be comfortable, but I don't want to be like with water polo. It just feels annoying to me. I don't want to be annoyed. But the one game that I gave it a lot of thought. I was like, what's one game what's one sport that I played lacrosse, you know, but I was like, what's one sport? And it's jai-alai.
What?
So I don't know where it comes from precisely, but I remember seeing it in Mexico. So it's like lacrosse in that you have a ball and a goalie, and it's like soccer, but you have this giant hook on your arm. It's not a stick in a net like in lacrosse. It's giant hook.
It's like the Tron game.
Yes, exactly like the Tron game. Yeah. And you get this ball like moving because you can get so much leverage on this thing. And that looks exciting. I guess the other sport, now that I think about it, is Australian rules football. I played rugby kind of, but like Australian rules football looks way funner than rugby because it's sort of in the direction of American football. Anyway, let's take a break and we get back more of the questions. What do you say, Berto?
Let's do it.
All right, we're back from the break. Let's do another OPP, Berto, while we're at it. I mean, this is kind of a relaxed episode. So these people became patrons also in July of 2020 and have stayed patrons ever since. We have Gabrielle from Hurlstone Park, Australia. Danny from Willagi, I thought it was Washington, but I think it's in Australia. Willagi. Ines from Salt Lake City. Rachel from God knows where. Anna from Copenhagen. Laura from Ontario. Trash Panda from Oklahoma City. Josh from Seymour, Tennessee. Pat from God knows where. Kaylee from God knows where. Harriet from Joslin, Australia. Well, a lot of Australian people.
Wow.
Patty from God knows where. San from Amsterdam. Max from country AT. Austria, of course, yeah. Every time I come up AT, I always forget. Got to remember AT, Austria, AT. Shane from Flagstaff. Audrey from God knows where. Elizabeth from Astoria, California. Brianna from Memphis, Tennessee. That's a great town. Another
Tennessee.
A Gabriella. We had a Gabrielle from Australia, and now we have a Gabriella from God knows where. We have Oishi from Raleigh, North Carolina. Oishi is delicious in Japanese. So is that person's literal name is delicious? Xenon from Singapore and Ezra from God knows where. Thank you so much for becoming a patron and staying a patron through thick and thin.
It's amazing.
Next question. I lost my place here. From Amanda, patron Amanda, they asked, what is your favorite taco spot in Seattle? And she says, personally, mine is Carmelo's. And I was trying to figure out, do you have a favorite taco spot? I
don't even have a taco spot, let alone a favorite. No,
do you like tacos? Do you like tacos?
If you're like, hey, we're eating dinner and there's tacos, I'd be like, oh, okay. Do you have a vegan taco or a veggie taco?
Oh, man, Stacy and I, it's like pretty much 60% of the time we go out for
really?
Mexican and good Mexican food. Or sometimes we go to like those corner taquerias that are really run down.
Are these hard shell tacos?
No.
Okay, because I've never understood. You know what? I have a gripe of wrath about tacos because when I came to this country visiting my mom when I was a kid, every now and then at camp or daycare or whatever, they'd have tacos. I freaking hated those things because I'd grab this like stupid shell that always crumbled. They have this like wilted lettuce and you put the little stupid lettuce and then you put the little meat and you put the little tomatoes and then you go to bite it. Instantly the thing cracks and the stuff falls out. I hated it.
Yeah, well,
never liked it.
There's a technique, but that's a 70s, 80s American taco. Since over the past 30 years, I would say you'd be hard-pressed to even find those kind of, particularly in a restaurant, you're not going to find those kinds of tacos. Tacos is, made with corn tortillas or flour tortillas, and it's all about the ingredients. And
so they're soft. They're soft. You can actually grab them and eat them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, are you serious? Like when you've never been to a taco?
When I think of taco, is what I just described. It's like this yellow corn shell with stuff that falls out of it.
So you have not had a taco or from a Mexican-inspired place that was a soft
Maybe
taco?
I have, but usually I'll order like an enchilada or fajita or something.
Wow. Yeah, well, there's a lot of different great taco places and Mexico places, but Stacy and I love a place called Tacos and Beer in Seattle. And it sounds like a terrible place, but it's actually a wonderful place. And it's a small little place. And it has great food and good atmosphere. The food's, it's not fantastic. It's not, like fine dining, but I don't know. It's really comfortable. When Stacy and I want to just have a date night that's relaxed, we've been to Tacos and Beer many, many times. Patron Brittany says, being a local patron based in Bellevue, will String Cheese Incident or any other Kirk or Humberto play again locally? So, end of question. So, first off, I think it's hilarious
Cheese Incident.
that someone thinks my band's name is String Cheese Incident.
That's a great name for another band.
Which I think was a typo on their part, because you would think, because there's no like smiley face in there.
Yeah.
My band's name is Bread Knife Incident. I get why you would. I think there's another band called
String Cheese Incident. That sounds hilarious, dude.
Yeah, that's the offshoot.
Because you can imagine what was the incident with string cheese.
Yeah, and for those that are interested in the naming of my band, was the very first practice that we had. Our bassist had a bread knife incident in which he had cut too far into a bagel and sliced his hand open. And as a bassist, it made it harder for him to play. And at the time, I was trying, because, previously was our band, you and me, Berto, and we overthought everything. We thought about the stage show and our outfits and the presentation and the production and lighting and, all this stuff. We were very meticulous about it. And I like that. But at this point in my life, I just wanted something that was extremely easy and down to earth. And so our very first practice, this happened, and I don't know who suggested, maybe it was me, maybe it was one of the other guys, and we said, how about we just name our band Bread Knife Incident? And I just thought, yeah, that's perfect. And it's a terrible name, but I don't give a shit because I don't want to think about it. It's like perfect,
Terrible.
And so
great
it's
name.
called Bread Knife Incident. Anyway, will we play live again? I do plan on that. There's a couple things that I want to do in the future. There's a few things I want to do in the future with my music. One is I actually have this pipe dream of playing live on YouTube with either a band or with my loop machine or something. I'm sure very few people would care about that, but I don't know.
I care.
I like to play music. There's that. Also, I want to get our cover band back together and play music that way. But also, Carlos, my drummer from Bread Knife Incident, is actually coming up to Seattle.
To move or just to visit?
Just to visit next year. And we're planning
I can't wait to see him.
We're planning on writing and recording a whole new, like maybe an EP or something.
Wow.
And so I want to do that. But in terms of playing live, like in a club, that's, maybe, but at the same time, I've been doing that for over 30 years. And once you kind of reach a certain plateau of, it's sort of like been there, done that. And
yeah.
And maybe I'll have another resurgence of that because there have been different periods in my life where I wouldn't do it and then I would pick it back up again. But it's this huge pain in the ass. I won't go into all the details, but it's a huge pain in the ass without a lot of payoff. And the sound systems can be really terrible. And you might show up and there's just two people in the audience and you're just like, why did we do this to ourselves? And in order to not make a fool out of yourself, you have to rehearse.
Yeah, of course.
Every few days for months and months and months. Like you can't just practice a few times. Like you really want to make sure that you know what you're doing. And so it's I don't know. Actually, I hadn't thought. Well, do you think you'll play live again one day?
Maybe. So I've been playing every Wednesday. Well, mostly every Wednesday, but we skip sometimes with my ex-bandmate. Ex-bandmate from Plastic Polly, Eric, who was the guitarist in that band. And every Wednesday we jam on new songs. We have about 4 new songs that we were working on and 2 more that we have to practice. And I think our goal is to get back up to about 10 and then just record another record and put it out the same way we did before. But we don't currently practice with a drummer. We just do, recorded drums, and we actually jam digitally, online. He plays his guitar remotely. I play my bass and I sing. I still
can't believe that the lag isn't significant.
It's gotten to the point now that the audio quality is not good, but it's 10 to 20 millisecond delay is enough for us to jam.
Oh, that makes sense. So you ratchet down the quality.
And there's no video.
Right. Oh, and what do you use?
It's called Jamulus, but now there's a couple other alternatives too.
So they're specifically made for this application.
Yep, and they optimized it to have super low bandwidth packets going back and forth.
Yeah.
And what you do is you're peer to peer, so it's really optimized. So I'm in this case,
you're not
he's
going
the
through
server.
a server. You're going straight.
Yeah,
I see.
His machine is the server, and I'm the client, and so we're just going back and forth. So and every now and then it garbles the sound a bit. So it's not perfect. But dude, like he'd have to drive an hour to come see me or send me down there. So it does the trick.
Well, and I'm guessing you can plug your bass in directly to your computer, and
totally
you don't have to annoy your family and that sort of thing.
Exactly. So the only thing they hear is my wailing, and then he can record on his end.
Do your kids say anything?
Oh, actually, no. It's great. My little 6-year-old. She didn't want to do it anymore, but a couple times she sat here with little drums jamming with us, and all she could hear was imagine my unplugged bass, so and my singing, but she was playing along with it. Although I think for that session I actually turned on the monitors a little bit so she could hear.
That's funny.
Yeah.
She'd be a great drummer. I mean, she already is kind of like Animal, and those kind of kids are always good drummers.
She's gotten into singing. She's been taking singing lessons. She loves singing. So the answer as to whether I'll play again live.
Can you imagine playing at the Blue Moon and those kinds of places?
Yeah, but it is so much work, and I got to get a drummer. Paul might do it, but then
you also think about
and
you also think about viruses and stuff. Like the small tiny spaces like Blue Moon and other kinds of.
But I will say that I definitely want to make more videos like I did those 13 little videos. I actually want to start making videos like that and put them on my channel.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. I think that's another part of this that I hadn't thought about. Like, if you would have asked me a few years ago if I was going to play live again, I'd be like, yeah, of course. That's like part of who I am. But I think I get my live performance jollies out from doing all the other things, you know. I get my narcissistic needs that way. But another thing that I do, which is funny, that has Berto, can I just tell you my life with Cameo just for a second?
Sure.
You know Cameo, right?
Yeah.
So people
I've
will
used it many times.
So people will pay money to get some either high-level celebrity, like, I don't know, there's big celebrities, or very unknown celebrity-ish sort of people like myself to say happy birthday to a friend or something. And when people will submit, because it's almost like a tweet in that they only have a certain amount of characters they can submit. So someone will say, you know, I want you to say happy birthday to my wife. She loves your channel, da-da-da. And sometimes in the Cameo, so I always feel compelled to talk and not just yammer, but actually give entertaining stuff for at least 60 to 90 seconds, right? And sometimes I'll go for like 10 minutes, you know, if someone really asks a juicy question. But I would say half the time, it's just someone saying, you know, my wife's a fan and it's her birthday tomorrow. Tell her happy birthday. And that's all I have. So I go, you know, hey, Jennifer, it's your birthday. Happy birthday from me and your husband, Jeff. You know, that's literally like 6 seconds. And I need something else. So what I've been doing is I will try to find a song that relates to anything in the Cameo. Usually all I have to go off of is their name, right? I'll try to find, you know, if it's Jennifer, Jenny, who can I phone to? And so I have been very quickly Googling and then looking up the chords and then rehearsing in like 30, because I don't want to spend a bunch of time on a Cameo, you know what I mean? And then I'll try to perform it. Yeah. And sometimes I have to change the key and I've got to play like the rhythm part on a guitar.
That's awesome. That sounds fun, actually.
Yeah. And it's this little performance, and I hope it's not annoying to have. I'm sure they love it. And I never record the whole, I never sing the whole song.
That would be so odd. Like, hey, here's your Cameo. And then it's like a 5-minute song that you recorded.
Yeah, I just sing like, you know, 4 lines kind of a thing. But
especially because since you're just kind of playing the guitar, you know, the musical intermissions, you're literally just playing the bar chords.
All right. Patron Ann says, Berto, what do you love the most about Kirk? And Kirk, what do you love the most about Berto? Berto, Ann says, I love Berto's sense of humor and honesty to talk about himself, and I love Kirk's empathy and insight, and I love how the two of you interact. Heart emoji. Berto, what do you love the most about me?
I think the thing I love the most about Hondi is that he can lead us to a destination. You know, like you can have this vision of like, hey, we're going to do this thing. It's very complicated. It's going to take a lot of planning. And it could be a year's worth, you know, of planning and stuff. But then you organize it and you put, you know, sub goals in place, and then you get us there and you inspire the whole way. Because that's something that, like, I admire, because I can put out big ideas and big goals, and I can be inspirational, but I am not as organized as you. And so I just really like that you're so organized. But I don't mean it in a boring way. I mean it in like, and we accomplished because of that, these big, awesome things. So,
yeah, you said that before, which, you know, it's nice of you to say. It is a complicated compliment, though, you know, because are you saying that you appreciate, and don't let me put words in your mouth, that through my organization and leadership, we all have a really great time that we could not have had otherwise? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, yeah, because it permeates everything, like your birthday parties, your other parties, our band that we worked on, the podcast, trips that we might take. Like, in fact, you complimented me the other day for the Disney trip.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that was, I coming from you, I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
I must have done a pretty good job with that.
Well, you did. I mean, I noticed a lot, like, because for those who don't know, we went to Disneyland a few months ago, and Berto organized basically the whole thing. Like last year, he gave me and his brother tickets to go to Disneyland and California Adventure in Anaheim for 4 days. And so then we had to plan it out. Well, although I did kind of play a role in planning it out, because I remember like in November, I was like, okay, when are we going to lock this down? Because I'm trying
well, that's your good influence, right? But
yeah. But when we were there, you were the hub of, there was you, your wife, your 2 kids who are old enough to not be super moody all the time, but they would have their ups and downs, right?
Right.
And your brother and his wife and me and my wife, and me and your brother know each other kind of, but we mainly know each other through you. And so everyone is pointed at you. Everyone's depending on you. And your health wasn't doing so great.
No, I was sick the first couple days. I had a cold, a really bad fever too. It was weird.
Right. Achy and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's all this coordination of everything, and when you go to, if you've ever been to Disneyland, these kinds of things, from the minute you wake up until the minute you go to bed, everything is like an activity, right? You got to plan how we're going to eat, how we're going to get the kids to, take a nap, or I don't know, whatever it is that they have to do. We have to go on all these rides, and we have to coordinate people's moods, and I don't know, just everything was dependent on you. And there was a lot of people nagging you, including me probably. And you kept it cool the whole time. You were always fun. You were always jovial. You were always accommodating and flexible and in a good mood, even though you were sick. And I just thought, wow, I mean, so many other people under this much stress from all these different angles would like blow up and say, give me a break. Like, God bless your wife. She's a wonderfully patient person when it comes to, she's a teacher, for crying out loud. But if she were in charge and everyone was nagging her, she would have had a couple meltdowns, you know what I mean? Which would have been understandable. Yeah. But you didn't at all. Like and I thought, I should compliment him for that.
I think, so that's something I think about myself is that I am good at is sort of keeping cool and stuff like that. But the reason I was giving you that compliment is because one of the reasons it matters so much to me is that I haven't had that many great influences in my life, at least close to me. Like I have a lot of celebrities that I admire and stuff, but people that are close to me, especially male role models, and so it matters a lot to me that you have been a positive male role model in my life. So,
I mean, it's weird to think. Most of me can't really even swallow that I'd be a role model for you, because we have a lateral relationship.
Yeah, I know, but people can also be. Because in a way, you've been like a little bit like an older brother to me, but not exactly, because we've definitely been peers.
Yeah.
But because of the things, there are strengths that you bring to the table that I don't have, or I don't have as well, or whatever, that I've been able to absorb. And specifically the one that I've always admired is like, wow, man, Kirk's just really organized. And again, I don't mean that in a trivial way. I mean like your whole life.
Yeah. I mean, believe me, I take that.
Yeah.
I think that about myself. I like that about myself. It's something I try to accentuate and lean into. And, we won't go into details, but everything involved in this podcast over the past 14 years has required a complete obsession with the process and all the moving parts. And, what do we even talk about, for crying out loud? And, just all that is entailed in making a successful business, essentially, and having employees. It's something that I like about myself. But do you is that a vibe that you see me as an older brother?
No, not regularly. Just But look, like
because I don't see you as a younger brother.
No, and
I see you.
we didn't
I see
meet
you
that
as
way or anything.
as an equal brother, personally.
Sure. But
if anything, there were times when you were my big brother. Like when we were in the band together, you were more of the leader. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not the right analogy. Because you're right. I don't treat you like that, or I don't necessarily think of you that way. It's more that I have had a lot of friends in my life, but very few of them have helped me like steer towards more stable places.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, a fair amount of your friends have issues that are so big, they make it so you're the one sort of leading them. You're the one helping them. They're not necessarily giving you that kind of thing.
And there's things that I appreciate about them that have nothing to do with helping me guide myself, right?
Sure.
But so and ultimately, it's, I guess one of the things that I appreciate about it is that you could have early on said, "Hey, Berto, you're not very organized, so I'm actually not gonna, and not maybe in those words, but like, I don't know, you actually work collaboratively as well. So what was like, looking back at when we did our record, you sort of took on this role of like, I'm going to make sure this happens, and I'm going to kind of keep us on schedule and on the ball. But you also delegated a lot of things to me and helped me, or let me, contribute in the mixing and like getting the sounds and the things. And so like we had a really good balance in that sense.
Well, that's what's really great about our dynamic is that, and it's like this in a lot of arenas, whether it was when we were out in the town or we're on the podcast, it's I have ideas and I thrust it at you and you run with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
Were
actually,
you a quarterback?
no, I was running back.
You were
but I was the quarterback of the defense. I was middle linebacker, and I called the plays on defense. But Berto, I was listening to an old rerun the other day, and I forgot about a thing that we used to do, which is where I would ask you to improv something to ask people to become patrons. So as a way of kind of
I remember that. Yeah.
reminding me about that.
Yeah.
So if you were to convince the listeners right now to become a patron from the voice of what's something that we've
Jerry Maguire.
Okay, from Jerry Maguire. You are Jerry Maguire.
Look, we've been down this road together this far. It's incomprehensible that at this point we couldn't go through that finish line. Like, think about it. We're at those last couple of yards and we've done this together, but I can't do it without you. If you don't do it, I can't do it. If you don't do it, I can't do it. We have to do it together.
Show me the money.
Show me the patronship.
So yeah, we got to remember to do that more often. If I forget in one of our episodes, you got to remember. And that's an example of that. Like I tee it up, and then, which is pretty easy to do, and then you go with it. For me, what I wrote down when I first read this question about what I love the most about Berto is that it's kind of in line with what I've been saying, but it's that you're a good friend and you're always there, and you always have, I always have a good time with you, like an uncomplicated time. I know I can hang out with you really in any circumstance. I could invite you to like my parents' house. We could go out into town. We could be on a podcast together. We could play video games together. And I know there's not going to be any rough issues. There's not going to be that moment with that one friend where you're just like, okay, I think something is happening right now. I'm going to back away. Like, you're a very accommodating, fun person. You don't really have any rough edges to your personality. And, that doesn't sound like a massive compliment, but it is really. It's
no, I get it. And I mean, it's like the way that it works for me is that not everyone does the improv well, right? And the improv meaning you saying that you throw me something. But in this case, you're saying like, hey, Berto, do you want to come over to a, I don't know, random thing like trivia night or whatever? oftentimes this is not something I would choose to do on my own, or maybe I wouldn't have even thought of it or whatever. But I like that, you think that I would have a good time and that I would add something to it. So then that makes me want to have a good time and add something to it. And yeah, I think there's a little switch in my head that if I'm going to show up, I'm going to show up. I don't like showing up and then being like, ugh, I shouldn't even be here.
Yeah. And I just think about so many other friends of mine who don't have that mix where on one hand, I might have a friend that'll show up and be like what you said, which they'll be quiet or non-participatory or, that sort of thing. Or another friend that is so obnoxious that they just want to take up all the space in the room and don't allow anyone to chime in at all or something. And whereas for you, I just always trust that you will be a good presence. There's not going to be any hostility or any kind of weirdness or I don't know. It's just you're just always fun and uncomplicated. But also the main thing is that you're a good friend. I mean that you care and I can tell and you show up. And I think over the years as we've gotten older, and I think you've talked about it, that both of our friend circles have atrophied, particularly during the pandemic. And it's interesting to see who's left behind after the rest has evaporated, and you and I are still here, so I think that's a huge deal to me. I was listening to Tig Notaro's podcast.
Doesn't that sound like a Star Wars character?
She was in Star Trek. She was an actress in Star Trek. But and they were talking about, Tig was asked if she had any best friends. She's like, well, I have close friends, but I've kind of feel like best friends is for kids. And I thought, and I sort of disagreed with that because I feel like when we're kids, we have so-called best friends as a way of declaring, right? It's a formal arrangement between you and your best friend. You both call each other best friends. And it's like getting engaged to someone. It's a public, proclamation. It says certain things. It means that if you have a birthday party, you always invite each other. It means they're the first person you think of when, if you can only invite one person, then you invite your best friend. You tell each other everything, that kind of stuff. And so for me, I'm just like, well, you're my best friend, and Bob is also my best friend, in different ways, really, and also in very similar ways. But I actually like, at least for myself, thinking about that because I think friendships should be pretty intentional, even as adults, because if you don't do that, you run the risk of drifting apart and of not declaring to the people that are important to you that they are important to you. And I've had that happen to me where someone will reach out to me and say, like, look, I think, this happened to me rather recently. Someone came to me and she's like, I think of you as a bigger friend than I think you think I am to you.
Oh, interesting.
And she's like, you don't have to change, but I'd like it if you thought of me more as a bigger friend. And I was like, oh, it was this formal request, really, and illumination. And I gave it some thought and said, yeah, I actually do.
I thought you were like, no, sorry.
But I did. And I just didn't know that that's what she wanted from me. I thought I was at the sort of outer circle of the onion, if you will. And I was on the inner circle, according to her. And so that helped. And I've reoriented myself in that direction. And so I feel like, you're that, and it's not, and it's because of all your qualities and what you mean to me that I would want you to be that way, and how we've naturally kind of gotten to that place.
That's so true, man. I mean, I have the same situation where over the years, first of all, you don't have enough time in life to have like that many friends. You think you do. Like, Facebook would tell you have like thousands of friends, right? But you don't really have that time. You can't spend that time with that many people. And then even the time you spend there, I have people that I know that I would consider them friends, but there's certain experiences that really define that relationship. And you either have had them or you haven't. And if you've had them, then you feel like you've crossed over into a new area where it becomes more like perennial,
Like what? Like what?
So, with you, and I'm not even you don't even have to go to like, well, we were in a band together. It was definitely like certain moments where I was like, okay, if I can be out in the U District and we can walk into a random pool hall and Kirk and I can just bounce off each other and have a grand old time randomly, okay, that's one of my best friends right there. Like it just doesn't have to be more complicated than that. And it's not about how long you've known each other. Of course, the longer you know each other, the more you cement memories and all that, of course. But honestly, so some of my existing still best friends are from junior high in Colombia. And yeah, I spent time with them then. And then I went years not even seeing them. And then even later, only seeing them a little bit here and there when I travel. And I still feel really connected to them. And it's not a ton of them. It's 3 people. And so these little moments really kind of stick in you in great ways. Like I'd say with Ron, my friend Ron, there were these simple moments in high school that were mostly about music. And that was it. That was all it took. And then, yeah, we've had a whole bunch of other stuff. But that was really all it took to okay. And then with you,
wouldn't you say it's the dedication through time and space? Because you were also friends, you were close with people in high school who are still maybe close in your heart, but you don't see or talk to anymore.
And to be fair, though, when I look back, we never had that little spark. It was always like a more situational friendship, right? There's something easy when you have a good friend, a really good friend. There's something easy about those moments, it just fits like a glove, like an OJ glove. Oh wait, no.
Right. Yeah. Easy. Yeah.
Easy like Sunday morning. So when I think of those times where we would go out, or certainly nowadays, but I mean, just it just felt easy. Like the thing where you say where you could throw something at me. Well, it's the same thing, because I could be weird and you would fly along with it, and it was great. It was, and I felt safe, and I felt supported, and I felt like we could have an easy, fun time, even if we were in the middle of the desert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And by the way, I also was listening to the Commodores album in which Lionel Richie sings Easy. I have that vinyl. Patron Sunny from North California asks, what's y'all's favorite Star Wars alien? Berto.
Well, so if we mean non-humanoid, then that could include R2-D2. So that would be my favorite alien. But if we mean like an organic matter alien... Yeah, okay. But non-humanoid organic matter alien, then, I mean, I have to go Chewie. Chewie is my, Chewie.
I would go Chewie, and my second is that Porg that was screaming. Anonymous patron, which is also behind me on my shelf, by the way, because I gave out as a prize during one of our Oscar parties this Porg that actually you press on it, it goes. Rah, rah,
we have that one.
And you won it, and I wanted it so badly I bought my own during the pandemic. Anonymous patron, and also Berto, that I probably bought it before episode 9 came out, because now that episode 9 it came out, Star Wars,
you feel dirty.
Episodes 7 and 8 just feel like crap to me, and. Have you watched Andor? We've talked about this.
Oh, yeah, dude. Oh,
have you seen episode 6?
7th? Yeah, I saw episode 6.
7 came out, I think, today or yesterday.
Oh, my gosh. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, but, oh, God, it's so Andor.
It's the right sensibility. It's the right art style. It's the right direction. Yeah. It has that 70s kind of non-shiny Star Wars feel that I love.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost zero fan service. they go into detail. They have the guts, the courage to give us like this really long kind of scene between that young Nazi guy, that young security guy, and he goes home and he's interacting with his mom, and you get that complicated relationship, and then the next episode we don't even see that guy anymore. So I just feel like they understand how to make a good story and trust that the audience will actually enjoy it, even if it doesn't have all the explosions or the.
That's right.
And there's literally no lightsabers or Jedi or
no
really anyone.
Stormtroopers.
No stormtroopers. No one from the movies. There's no reference to.
They referenced one time. They referenced Sol Guerrera. That's
they'll be
character.
Referencing Rogue One characters because that's where it's headed. But Rogue One, a lot of people didn't even see that movie,
right?
And certainly people don't remember it like the way you and I do. Anyway, I love Andor. It gives me hope that Disney knows what they're doing to some extent.
And this was true in Rogue One because those characters weren't straightforward.
Yeah.
And in this show, same thing. Like the hero of our story did murder 2 people in the first episode.
Mm-hmm. And at
know,
the beginning of Rogue One,
self-defense.
he does too. He killed
exactly. Yeah.
Another rebel, honestly.
Yeah.
But when you have tough decisions you got to make, you got to take it. So, and I don't know if we've talked about it, but just for people out there, if you care about such things, I loved Mandalorian. There were some rough moments, kind of, but Mandalorian season 1 and 2, loved it.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, maybe Disney knows what they're doing. In contrast to how they handled episode 7, 8, and 9, especially episode 9.
Right.
And then when Obi-Wan Kenobi, or no, the next thing was Boba Fett. So we're like, oh, okay, Boba Fett's going to, I mean, if they made Mandalorian awesome, imagine
Boba Fett.
What they're going to do with Boba Fett. It's going to be so great. Boba Fett was so boring. I
stopped watching it, dude. I didn't finish it.
I don't doubt you. I mean, honestly, the second half, it turns back into Mandalorian, and it's actually good.
It might be better.
There's a great sequence you got to see, actually.
Okay.
You just have to watch that one episode. But anyway.
And I haven't watched Obi-Wan either.
Yeah, the beginning of Boba Fett, I mean, it's like, it's okay, and I watched it, but I was really making a lot of excuses in my head. I'm like, well, I don't know, maybe. And then Obi-Wan Kenobi was, I mean, it was terrible on so many levels, which I won't go into.
Okay.
And not entertaining, and it was like I was being force-fed. When you're a kid and your mom's like, you gotta finish your vegetables. I felt like that's what I was doing because I'm like, well, I have to watch this, right?
To go through it.
It's with Ewan McGregor and with what's his face who plays Anakin. And
is he in it?
Yeah, he's in it.
Okay.
And
but wait a minute, when does this take place?
It takes place in between.
Okay, it's before Darth Vader, so it's like somewhere between episodes 2 and 3.
No, he's Darth Vader. Anakin's Darth Vader. It's
after. Okay, he is already Darth Vader.
Yeah, it's after episode 3 and before episode 4.
All right.
It's like it's Luke and Leia are like 7 or 8 years old.
I see.
So it's 7 or 8 years
Please tell me
old.
that Luke and... Well, anyways, I don't even want to know.
No. Everything you want me to tell you, I can't because...
Oh, no.
Because it's so stupid. There's so many dumb things about this.
Did you know that Luke created R2-D2 and then sent him in a time machine to the past?
So there's... What I've started to do in my head, and for people who don't care about Star Wars, you're just like, why are they talking about this? So I'll just talk about it just for a couple more seconds, is that... In my head, I've decided that there are some products by Star Wars universe, in the past 10 years that are fan fiction. They are not really what happened. They're some idiot that could be named something like J.J. Abrams. It rhymes with J.J. Abrams, makes episode 9, and it's like, that's not really what happened because, of course, that the Emperor would not come back as a zombie.
No,
that's stupid-ass premise. That's stupid. Everything that happened in the first trilogy, 4 through 6, is erased if the Emperor had the ability and knew he was going to come back to life. It completely negates the entire story, and all the force powers that are presented in episode 9. It completely breaks the world. But that's what fan fiction is. It's ridiculous, and it's written by someone just because they don't know what they're doing, and they can do that. But things like
Right.
Mandalorian and Andor and Rogue One, those are actually because this is a real world to us. That's why nerds care so much.
Right.
Because it's not just a set of writers writing stuff. They are documenting an event. This is a historical
And
document.
being consistent.
Right.
We want
And in order for us
consistency.
to feel the world, it has to be consistent. It has to follow
Right.
its own rules.
If you throw things out every episode and like, well, I don't care. It's what we're telling you what happens. Like, well, then I don't believe you.
Yeah. All right. Anonymous patron wrote in, Dr. Kirk, how invested do you get into the shows you watch for the channel? Do you have it? Do you have a favorite character from the reality shows you watch? So to answer the first question, how invested do I get? I get heavily invested. Stacy, she watches the videos to make sure I don't say anything stupid and to make sure there's no like editing problems before she posts it. And so she sees all that, and she will watch the show because when she's watching my videos, she kind of wants to know what the context was because I'm only reacting to little bits and pieces. And so the two of us, a good percentage of our conversations have to do with, can you believe what Kimberly did the other night? And so there's, I'm pretty invested. And then in terms of my favorite character, that's a hard question to answer because like what criteria would I use? But I consistently and feel good about this is Armando of Kenny and Armando is my favorite person. I feel like he could be a younger brother of mine that we could have fun with. He seems like a good human being. Anonymous patron Julia from California says, if you could meet with anyone from the past, who would it be? Berto, we get asked this question a lot.
Yeah.
So probably don't have to go into too much detail, but just to reiterate, who would it be?
Well, I've said before, the Mr. Rogers is someone I would definitely want to meet from the past. Because if it's living or dead, I would definitely want to meet him.
What would you want to do with him?
I would honestly want
Party!
First, I would tell him, I'd be like, hey, listen, I'm sure you heard this a lot, but you played a big role in my developing little mind. And it's probably because of you that I am more centered than not. So I would want to thank him. And then I would literally want to sing songs with him. I'm like, hey, can we just sing songs, do music? Because the music in that show was amazing. It was like all this jazzy compositions.
Yeah.
And he was a great, his voice was not like this beautiful voice, but he was just a great singer, always presented the themes so well.
Well, he comes from that, I don't know what you call it, that group of guys from the 60s who could, sit down on the piano and just sing a song well, but not amazing. And it was casual. I feel like there were a lot of casual pianist jazz singer guys. Like,
Right.
What's that one guy's is it Chet Baker or what's that one guy's name? Anyway, it's very mellow sounding, and I feel like that's a dying art where someone could just sing down. Because if you and I sat down at a piano, we would like kind of belt it out, right?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I feel like there's not a lot of people that sit down and just it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. And that would be great. For me, it changes in terms of but I'll just say Jesus, so that I could record him saying that a lot of today's Christians in the United States are horrible people, so that they would actually follow what he really said, or what I believe he really said, which is completely contrary to their fucking politics, Berto.
Isn't it pronounced Jesus, though?
Yeah. I think his technical... Anyway, patron Midela. Is the U.S. still a good country to live in compared to other developed countries? Berto.
I have little reference because I haven't lived in a lot of other developed countries. What I will say is that I am personally quite frightened about several things happening in this country, because there is a non-trivial faction that is not believing in facts and doesn't believe in science and doesn't believe in using, our dialogue to make things better. And so I don't know. A lot of the things happening in the last N number of years here remind me of when I was in the late 80s in Colombia, where facts didn't matter and people, very, very few people had an inordinate amount of power and were trying to destroy everything. So I don't know. But at the same time, if we're comparing to not developed countries, well, I still have access to a lot of things that are very important, and I still have roofs over my head and things. And it's a very large country with a lot of resources. And the area we live in is fairly liberal and has a lot of good social facilities compared to other parts. So,
yeah, I mean, the area we live in is extremely liberal.
Yeah.
Seattle area, Western Washington. So when you say, when people ask what's it like to live in the United States, it'd be like saying what's it like to live in Europe, right? It's pretty varied in terms
That's
of
true.
where you live. There are states right now where it's illegal to get an abortion, whereas in Seattle and Washington State, it's been legal for decades and will never be illegal. It will always be legal. So the dependence that I have on the politics of my region, and Washington State's big, it's comparable. It's probably bigger than a lot of European nations. United States is a vast, vast place. If you've ever driven across the United States, you just realize just how vast it is. I mean, there are vaster places like Siberia and sections of Canada for sure. But is the U.S. still a good country to live in? For me, yeah. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, honestly. I love it here. I love my town. I love my politicians for the most part. I love the mountains, and although
all the clean air.
Yeah, lately. So by the time this airs, this episode will air quite a bit in the future. But right now, in late October, we are experiencing a very odd climate change experience right now. So I've lived in Seattle 51 years, and we've never. So the summer never begins until like July 1. Occasionally summer will start earlier, but it'll be kind of spotty. But summer in earnest is July 1 and goes until mid-September, maybe late September. And as soon as October hits, for sure, you're in the fall. It's cold now. You're bundling up. You're, putting logs in the fire, so to speak.
Starts raining.
Yeah, raining. It gets dry. It gets really, overcast. And it's like that until the next July 1.
And everyone starts complaining. Everyone who's not from here starts complaining that it's never sunny and it's always rainy.
Yeah, except for me, because I at least I don't mind the rain, really. Yeah. And so two things are happening regarding climate change right now. One is it's October 20th right now in terms of this recording. And although today was a little chilly, I think a few days ago it was in the upper 80s.
And we've had no rain.
Right, and we've had no rain in weeks and weeks. And that'll happen sometimes in the summer, but certainly not October. And the other
and it's
aspect...
not 80 in October.
Yeah, which on one hand, you would be like, oh, we get this extra surge of summer. And we had our pretty bad May and June. I remember feeling like May and June was... I remember... So whenever that happens, I get this kind of sick pleasure seeing everyone complain about the weather, because I feel like I'm this old school Seattleite who I like the way, or at least I don't mind it. And I just, I don't know why I'm such a dick in that way, but like when it was really bad weather in June, I just thought, oh my God, I just can't imagine all the people that are complaining about how shitty this spring is. I was just like, I've never seen such a shitty spring before. Anyway, so we've had this really late summer, which has never happened. We've had record highs and massive wildfires that are east of Seattle that are blowing in this smoke into Seattle. And we've never had smoke. The first smoke problem that we even had of note was 5 years ago. And now... almost every year, there's a couple years there.
There was one year where we didn't, but 4 out of 5.
Yeah. where entire weeks are completely ruined, even though it's nice weather, by just choking levels of smoke, especially in your part of town, because you're further east than I am.
And this time it's because in the past, like in 2020, we had a really bad week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But this time it's going on it's like 6 weeks of smoke.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And
because of the fires.
Yeah. And so you can't go outside. You can't open your windows. You can't take your dogs for a walk. No. You can't. If you leave the house, you feel like you're smoking a cigarette in a constant way. If you have lung problems, it's going to aggravate that.
And my daughter, my 11-year-old daughter, sits there and says to me, "Why is this happening?" And I say, "Well, I mean, it is because of the fires, and the fires are more likely because it's dry and it's not raining, and that's more likely because of the climate change." And she gets so upset and frustrated, and she says, "We have to do something. We have to do something." Like, she starts channeling Greta, but it breaks my heart, man. I'm like, I don't know, because I wish I could tell her, like, oh, it's just this year. We just had a bad time this year. Don't worry. But I know that that's not the case, that this isn't going to be just like a little bit. And I think, what are they going to have to deal with, man? What are these kids going to have to deal with? It breaks our hearts.
Well, you texted me like a couple months ago saying, I think seriously, that you were going to become a politician because you wanted to change this.
I was seriously thinking about it. I joined a group at work that is, about climate change, and I'm starting to read through the threads. There's a lot of noise there too, but I was just kind of thinking, what can I do? Like, beyond, because as we've talked about, yes, like, what do I already do? Well, first of all, I work from home. I now force myself to only drive my hybrid car if I'm going far distances. Like, whenever I go to your house, I force myself to drive the Honda, even though the other car is more comfortable. I'm like, no. We recycle all these things. We do all these things. I'm always light, turning off all the lights and stuff. Okay. But I know that that's not moving the needle, because, just me doing it. What I need to do, of course, I need to do it, but I know that's not enough. So I keep saying, like, what can I do? And I've told my daughter this. I said, well, look, the things that we could do are influence, right? So I can talk about it on the podcast. I can, devote some time of that in my YouTube channel and do more content there. I can also try to do it through my work, right? And then I told her, she wants to be an artist. She draws and all these things. I'm like, you could, send messages with your art. You can try to do that. And then in addition to that, the other option is, like, get involved in politics and try to influence change, because I don't know, like, what else? I'm not sure what else.
Yeah. We're experiencing what we and others before us have been talking about. It's only going to get worse from here. And I was thinking today that what a shame it is that the wildfires are primarily affecting liberals on the West Coast, whether it's Seattle or Oregon or
yeah, but the hurricane affected Florida, and then
And I did think about that too, but I wish that Republicans would be breathing in this air and having to come face to face with the reality of climate change and our policies that have and continue to destroy the earth, and it's only going to get worse. To watch your kids struggling to breathe is a powerful motivator, but you and I don't need that motivation, Berto. There are other people that do.
I hear you. And what's weird is that I don't see what I see is a lot of us wild-eyed libs going on and saying, oh man, it really is getting bad. We told you. But what I don't see is, wait a minute. Okay, maybe we do need to reevaluate. Maybe, could it be that we are wrong, that it is a problem? I'm not hearing that. In fact, what's scary is I'm hearing things like, granted, these are extremes, but these extremes are becoming sadly more popular than one would imagine. What I'm hearing is things like, the hurricane in Florida was caused because we have climate change technology that the libs are using to target this to red district. Like these kind of insane conspiracy theories that are, again, not only did we not believe in the science to begin with, now we still definitely don't believe in the science, and now we're going to use our lack of belief in science to invent random, mysterious science that doesn't exist to blame the bad things that we were warned about on the people that warned us about them. So I don't know.
Yeah. So to answer your question, patron, I love living here.
It's great.
And I also know enough to know that it's not like the United States is the only place that has problems like this and has conspiracy theories and odd ways of thinking. So I know that. I'm not saying that America is better than other places, but I'm certainly not saying we're the only ones. And it's its own kind of special breed of ignorance and kind of bigotry or racism to think that we're the only country that has these kinds of issues.
Yeah.
Because people are unaware of what other countries are going through because they don't pay attention. But yeah, I still love living here. And I sometimes wonder if, and I know people have hypothesized this before, that you and me, Berto, will be the last privileged human generation that lives without having to worry about the kinds of things that people are going to have to worry about in the future. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, we'll see. This last trip to Colombia I took was the first time in my whole entire life, as adults certainly, where I thought, maybe I could see myself living here. I'm not saying, of course, they're also going to be affected and are being affected by. But I just, like, the thoughts started crossing my mind of, like, where else could I live? And that had never happened to me. I love this area. I've always been so happy here. But a lot of it is because of the outdoors and the amount of green and all that stuff. And so there's something really visceral that the thing I love most about this area is being threatened so directly. And I know that I can't just like escape climate change easily or something, but it has led to me actually looking at places in other parts of the world and being like, my gosh, am I going to have to move someday? Like, it's not great. But for now, we are very privileged on many, many levels to live here. You are right about that.
And on that depressing note, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because
you deserve it.